Hello, and I'm back with a review on Wayne Goss's eye brush set. So at the moment, these brushes are only available in this set of 5. On Love Makeup, they're £90, and I imagine sort of within a couple of weeks, maybe towards the end of April, that these will also, like the face set, be available individually. And it just happened they've sort of staggered the launch. And these are also, like the face brush set, like really good for the price, I think. And a lot of people, I think, will be really pleased to see the sort of flat shader brushes, because these were missing from the first set. His first release of brushes had a lot of beautiful blending brushes, very soft sort of tapered squirrel brushes that you can do a lot with, but I think a lot of people are more comfortable with flat shader brushes. They're sort of more obvious and easy to use, because obviously you just use them to lay down colour. And if you've been looking for those and you kind of had wanted those, felt that they were missing in the initial set, here you are. There's 2 in there at least, and there's also another kind of tapered brush in there, but it's different. I'll talk about it specifically in a minute, but these are all kind of different from the brushes that the type of brushes that he'd released, and most of them are goat hair, so the sort of the sort of brown tea-dyed goat brushes that are similar to the brushes in the face brush set, which I've just done another video for. The only one that isn't is this brush number 20, which is a goat and squirrel blend. So again, the design is Wayne Goss signature. Now he has a signature, kind of shiny black wood handles and black metal ferrules. So I will start off with brush number 16. Just double check, yeah. So brush number 16 is a large eyeshadow blending brush, and it's distinctive because it's round all the way, and it is it's very dense, very soft on a kind of sideways application because of the sort of silky soft nature of the hairs, but if you use it for blending, because it's so soft and you've got that that density, it's really good for blending, because it the density basically means it will pull pigment out. And I personally do not use brushes like this for eyeshadow blending very much. I like sort of more feathery, traditional kind of tapered blending brushes that aren't very dense. I prefer to blend slowly, but if you ever use sort of very dark, smoky eyeshadows and need very strong blending, these kind of brushes are good for strong blending. I will say, with the eye brushes in the set, you really notice the similarity, and they're sort of inspired by Hakuhodo brushes. I don't actually know which, it may be that Hakuhodo are behind some of these eyeshadow brush designs. They look and feel really similar, and this brush especially reminded me a lot of the Hakuhodo J214, which is also white goat hair. So Wayne Goss's dye, this one is white. The Hakuhodo feels slightly softer, but only slightly. Like, they're really similar. So they're both round, strong blending brushes. They're both really dense, and they're both appropriate to use with creams and powder products. And I tell you where I use these kind of brushes more often is with cream eyeshadow products. So where you use like paint pots or the Maybelline Colour Tattoo cream shadows. I love brushes like this just to sort of get the edges and make them really diffuse. So I use these more for cream than I would for powder products, because the density means that they're really strong. So yeah, as soon as I saw this brush, I thought, that reminds me of the Hakuhodo one. And the other brushes that I have in my range that are similar, okay, so this is a much more kind of unusual brush, because it's by Evgeny, and Wayne Goss himself has actually reviewed the Evgeny brush line. Evgeny is a Russian makeup artist this is from what I remember from his website, a Russian makeup artist who is based in Canada and Russia, and he came out with his own line of brushes a few years ago, and they've been sort of spreading quietly through word of mouth and amongst brush collectors and brush aficionados, and you know, just he's got some really unique kind of brushes in his line, and this is one of them. So this is a round blending brush, and on the first sight it reminded me of the Wayne Goss brush, but the Evgeny one I actually prefer for powder products. Firstly, the Evgeny one has is squirrel hair, and also it's more tapered, so if you look there you'll see that the Wayne Goss one is a much rounder. The Evgeny one is also a lot less dense, so if I sort of squeeze the hairs there you'll see that they collapse down more, whereas the Wayne Goss one is a lot more springier because it's denser. And for powder products I prefer the Evgeny squirrel hair because they're softer, and also because they're tapered. Like I said, I prefer to sort of blend softly rather than sort of go in and blend too strong and then actually just get rid of all the colour. So although the sort of shape wise there were similarities, it was a sort of roundness really, and the diameter of the and the radius of the cross section that really reminded me of it. But yeah, I use these for different things. They're not dupes of each other. And then the other two brushes that I have are actually synthetic brushes. So this one is a Real Techniques brush, and it's available in the 5 eyeshadow brush set in their range. And this is a round brush. So yeah, like the Wayne Goss sort of round. And again, I've been using these for cream eyeshadow blending. And it's smaller than the Goss, and it's also stiffer. That's because the synthetic hairs are just, yeah, by their nature they're kind of more firm, and because of that I think it's better for blending creams. Actually, it's slightly kind of stronger, but it doesn't feel pokey. Synthetic brushes to me rarely feel pokey or scratchy, but it's not quite soft and it's not as pleasant to use. So it's better for stronger blending than the Wayne Goss, but I think the Wayne Goss is more pleasant. And then this is the Eco Tools concealer brush, and yeah, airbrush concealer, and it's designed for blending concealer. And I don't use this myself for concealer under the eyes because it's not precise for me. Now for me, my sort of under eye area is quite small, so I use sort of quite small or more tapered concealer brushes. But it works out really well for, I tend to use this for, again, blending cream eyeshadow products and for eyeshadow primer. So compared to the Wayne Goss, it's much smaller. Again, they're both round, but I wouldn't say, again, they're dupes of each other. So, but it kind of gives you an idea of what kind of brush the Wayne Goss is, sort of round. If you've got this one, it's that sort of round dome-shaped brush. Okay, moving on to brush 17. Now brush 17 is a lay down brush, so it's an eyeshadow brush. It's flat, so yeah, it's a front, so you see how thin it is there. Soft goat hairs, and this also has Hakuhodo, I think, dupes, or, you know, Hakuhodo inspired by brushes. And they are, there's a couple that they have actually. So the J532 and the B532, which are kind of the same shape, except the J one is with the white goat hair and the B is blue squirrel hair. So if you line them up, you see how similar they are. So these are really good for, number one, base eyeshadow products. So obviously because of the width of these, you don't get precision, but you can apply, you know, sort of base, you know, like a white or a pale base eyeshadow really quickly. And if you've got large lid space, it's really good. As you can see, I have teeny tiny lid space, so I don't use it so much for that. But I actually like this for applying loose powder on top of my cream eyeshadow or primer sometimes if I want to have a dry surface, because it's sort of very quick and easy. And it's actually, I find these kind of brushes also really good for blending. I know that sounds weird because, you know, why would you use a flat brush for blending? But it tends to be, it's because the tips are very sort of soft and flexible. Because it's tapered, you see it's sort of, so from the side it tapers in. I actually find the ends really good for kind of soft blending. So I think with a flat eyeshadow brush like this, with this kind of tapered head, you can kind of sometimes get away with using it as lay down and blending. It'll depend on your eye shape and what kind of eye makeup look you're going for, whether or not that's achievable. But you know, I quite like brushes like this because they're very versatile. So I've showed you the two Hakuhodo brushes that this is really similar to, and the other one that I initially thought it was similar to was my Holy Grail eyeshadow brush, which is the Chikuhodo Z5, and I've talked about this at length before, but one of the reasons I like the Z5 is how dense it is. So yeah, compared to the Wayne Goss, you'll see how thick it is, and I like this for the reason I said that I can use it for lay down. So even though it's a thick wide brush, you can use the side to just actually apply targeted colour, and then it's thick and bouncy and sort of bushy enough to blend. So compared to the Z5, they are not dupes. The Wayne Goss one is much slimmer. And obviously this one's grey squirrel hair, so it feels fluffier, and this one feels more silkier. And then just for a size comparison, not because they're similar brushes, because they're not, this is the MAC 252. So sort of shape-wise it's the most similar, but the MAC one is a sort of rougher goat hair. And in fact it might even be pony hair. I'm never sure exactly which kind of hairs the MAC brushes are made of, because they don't specify. But you'll see it's slightly longer, so it's more kind of flexible. There's more give in the bristles than the Wayne one, and also it's actually a lot thinner. So I think the MAC one is better for creams and primers and cream eyeshadows, and the Wayne Goss is more versatile. You can use it with powder and creams. But I just wanted to give you that as a size comparison. So this is the MAC 252, not the 242, the larger version. Okay. Now the next brush is another versatile brush in the range, and one that a lot of you will be more familiar with eyeshadow brushes as a lay down, so kind of medium / small eyeshadow lay down brush. And years ago I almost exclusively applied eyeshadow with these kind of brushes. I think they're kind of no-brainer because they're almost like those sponge tips, and you know, you can see straight away how you use them, as opposed to a round fluffy brush where you kind of look at it and go, what am I supposed to do with that in the beginning. So these are sort of a really obvious way to apply eyeshadow, and I think loads of people were missing this kind of brush in the first set. So we'll be pleased to have it. I believe this is also goat hair. There's something about the gradient that makes you think that it's maybe like a pine squirrel hair, but I believe that this is actually dyed goat again. And it's not very dense, it's very, very thin, and again it's good for creams and powders. And this is a kind of brush that's quite easy. You can pick up a lot of product to pack colour on, to layer colour, because it just kind of applies it in a flat shape. I always find that I need to use a blending brush after applying eyeshadow with a brush like this. So similar brushes. Now the MAC 239, which is still, even after all these years, a real favourite of mine for eyeshadow application. It's just a kind of no-brainer, easy to use, easy to clean, easy to maintain, easy to find eyeshadow brush. And I always, when people ask me, you know, eyeshadow starter kits, or you know, what one brush should I get, I always say MAC 239 and the MAC 217. They're just the easiest to get, and they perform really, really well. And compared to that, really similar in width, it's just slightly longer, and in terms of softness they feel really similar. The MAC 239 is slightly thicker. This is a MAC 213, which I initially thought was similar, and actually the MAC 213 is a lot less dense. The Wayne Goss one, even though it's not that thicker brush, is more dense. I used to love the MAC 213. You see how old it is? It's that old MAC lettering, and I've had it for years, and I just kind of gone off it. I think as my makeup use has developed, and now I kind of the only thing that's good about it is that it's really loose and it's not dense, so it was one of those sort of shader and, you know, sort of multi-blending brushes. In case any of you have this one, so this is the Suq M brush, grey squirrel hair, so different kind of hair, and it's also slightly shorter. So I think this Suq M brush is really soft, really nice brush, but it's not as versatile as the Chikuhodo Z5 or even this Wayne Goss brush. And if you're looking for a Hakuhodo similar kind of model, because almost all the Wayne Goss brushes seem to have a Hakuhodo equivalent, the J004G in my collection, they look and feel so similar. The J brush is possibly slightly softer and silkier. Okay, now the next brush, I've lost count of the numbers, the 19, is a tapered crease brush, and this is different to the, so you know, Wayne had already 2 crease brushes in his first set, so the number 3 and the number 4, and these are, I think of more, the number 3 and the number 4 I think of more as blending brushes. They're sort of dense enough, they have enough resistance, and they're really soft. So this new brush is goat hair, and I think of it more as a crease brush rather than a blending brush, because there's something about the head, it's more directional and it's better for colour placement. So obviously you can use this for blending, but it's not quite fluffy enough for blending. So like, I actually find, if anything, when I've tried to blend with this, it concentrates the colour more because it's quite directional, and all the pigment actually ends up collecting, and I sort of end up with sort of quite a strong line. So I've actually used this more on my outer corner for creating a little bit of, I can never do a sharp V on my kind of eye shape, but I do sometimes concentrate slightly darker shadow in a kind of curve or just the outer third, and this is better for that. And the number 3 and the number 4 in from its previous range, definitely better for blending. So I really like this brush, and I'm glad to have it. And I do think that they're not dupes, and even if you've got these two, there's definitely space to get this one. If I compare it to the MAC brushes, I actually think it's more similar to the MAC 222 brush, which is the white one, again because of how directional it is. You see the way that you put it on the lid and it immediately sort of goes into like a firm shape. It's the resistance of the bristles that sort of makes it, sort of forces it into that position. Whereas the MAC 224 is a lot more fluffier and splayed out and bigger, and this is better for blending. You see, it's wider and it sort of diffuses colour, whereas something like this, as I say, it looks similar now on my monitor, but yeah, I said I use this more for placement of colour rather than blending of colour. Okay, finally, now this brush is a little sort of crease pencil brush, and lots of people will be excited about this one. So this is brush number 20. This is a brush that I said was not pure goat, so it's goat and squirrel blend, and obviously that's designed for it to be soft, and you can use this for obviously placing colour on the inner corner of the eye, and you can also, I primarily have been using it to blend liner and blend colour here. Now there's already been loads of raves about this brush. I have to say it's not soft enough for me. And that's not to say that it's not soft or it's pokey, but I have already found what I consider to be my holy grail lower lash line, and that is the Hakuhodo Z10. So if you compare to the Z10, it's very similar. The Z10 is sort of actually slightly less pointier, but the Z10 is 100% pure squirrel hair, and I could do this all day with the Z10 and not have any irritation, and you get a beautifully soft sort of diffuse gradient of colour. Whereas this, I find the Wayne Goss one, because of the goat hair in it, it's just a little bit more pokey, so I couldn't do that. I couldn't do it all day with this brush. That sounded rude. Compared to the MAC equivalent, which is the MAC 219 brush, they're quite similar. All the I've had a few 219s, and they've all slightly differed in shape. The Wayne Goss one is looks slightly more tapered, but I've had 219s which are more tapered as well. The 219 is definitely more pokier and hurts. Because of that, I think the 219 is actually better for blending out pencil liner. If you need to blend out a cream product or a more waxier, stiffer product, the 219 will be better, but I just avoid using it. I don't particularly like the 219. It doesn't feel very nice against my skin, whereas this feels better. And there's a Tom Ford brush which is very similar. They're almost dupes, actually, if you ask me. So there's a Tom Ford number 14. The Tom Ford one feels softer to me. but even that, as I said, compared to the Z10, which I've become used to, I don't reach for this as often as I should do, considering the price I paid. This is the CQ M brush, and the CQM is 100% grey squirrel, and it's really soft, but it's much bigger and it doesn't do the same thing. So the CQM gives a thicker, more diffuse line, and because of how thick it is, you can actually use it for blending, so it doesn't necessarily give a harsh line. It can be really sort of soft, but it's much thicker, so if you're looking for precision, the Wayne Goss one is going to be better. And finally, I will compare this to a Hakuhodo brush that I've got. So I was really excited when I first ordered this Hakuhodo brush because it's so small. You see how it compares? It's like 2/3 of that. It's so small. The G5520. I got really excited. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be good for blending up lines. And this is also a grey squirrel goat hair blonde. And again, I just find this a little bit pokey. I worry about it sort of scratching, and it just hasn't been it's a shame. It's such a useful size, it's such a useful shape. I think these are really, the Wayne Goss and the Hakuhodo one are really similar, so the Hakuhodo is like a smaller version. But yeah, ultimately for me, nothing surpasses my Chikuhodo Z10 for sort of powder lower lash line application. So overall, I think these Wayne Goss brushes, these 5 Wayne Goss eye brushes, are really good, and I think that they're going to have loads of fans because of the sort of no-brainer shapes, and they're also slightly unusual. I think this is quite unusual on the sort of department store sort of standard conventional brushes. This one's, the blending brush, is sort of quite unusual. But I will say, if you've got the Hakuhodo J series equivalents, I don't think that these necessarily add that much. I think they're very similar in shape and size, and I think that if you don't necessarily need backups, or you don't need alternatives, you might be better off sort of spending your money on getting different types of brushes, because I find them really similar. But yeah, overall, I definitely think they're worth the money. I don't think they're overpriced. I think, you know, they're really good value. And yeah, I imagine that as soon as these are available singly, they're going to sell out. So yeah, it's just have a think about your favourites and what you want, what you'd like to try, and get those orders in quickly. Okay, bye.